Camera center. Good. All right. Well, my name is Peter Migdal. I guess my students will call me Mr. Migdal, so I guess my name is Mr. Migdal. And this is my first attempt at a flipped type of assignment. I'm doing this for my EDU289AD class. And yeah, I'm going to post it up to YouTube. And the whole objective of this is to explain um, a language arts objective slash lesson that I either have taught or would like to teach. And the whole inspiration for me really to be a teacher is my junior year of high school. I read The Great Gatsby, and ever since then I've just been hooked on everything. I've always loved writing. I've always loved English as my favorite class. But The Great Gatsby is really what set everything for me. I'm like, I want to teach this. I would like to show this to my students, and I want them to get understanding and inspired as much as it inspired me. So the lesson objective I would like to teach would be reading comprehension and a clear understanding of The Great Gatsby. And there's many ways you can go about doing that. I remember even in my class when I was reading it, we did all these different type of reading strategies for it. The main one we used was the KWL one. It was like, what would you like to know? Or what do you know? What would you like to know? What did you learn from the book? We did a lot of that, as well as a lot of character mapping, which I wasn't. It really, when we learned about it, it was great, but there's so much creativity that can be involved when it comes to reading this book and learning this book and understanding this book. And I went out and found my my first copy I ever bought of The Great Gatsby. I have maybe about 4 more because I'm so in love with this book. But this is the first one that I read my junior year. If you can tell, it's still a little beat up and everything. But there's so many different ways to comprehend reading. But there's so many different ways to make it fun. And like I explained in my other assignment that I turned in, I thought of just one of the greatest ways that you could make it fun. And I got inspired by another teacher, actually, that I was shadowing in my first semester of going for my teaching certification. And he did the similar lesson, but with the Crucible. And what I would like to do mainly is put my students in the character's shoes, and this way they can get a real understanding of how they feel about the character. And so with that, I kind of took what he showed me and turned it into something that I'd like to do even more. And I don't know if you're familiar with Flat Stanley, but what Flat Stanley is, he is a flat piece of paper that the students turn into a person named Stanley, and they take him around and they show all over the world and or wherever they're going. They're supposed to carry him around like a friend. So it's something similar to that, except not to that extent, because we're not going to carry little Great Gatsby's around as much as I wish that we could. Or at least little Jay Gatsby is the main character of the book. Or also depending on how you look at it. There's a lot of main characters of the book, which is why I'd want to focus on visualization and characteristics of the characters and how you see them. So what I would like to do would be to take the little cutouts of people, imagine like little stick people cut out, and I would supply my students with the materials, of course. So what I would do is I would have however many students I have, I'd have enough people cut out so that they could all take them with them and use them in the classroom. And they would set them down on the table, and I'd supply them with all the arts and crafts stuff that they would need: the markers, the colored pencils, rulers if they needed rulers, things like that. And what I would have them do first is to use whatever artistic qualities that they could to draw and transform that little flat piece of paper into one of their favorite characters in the book, whether that be Tom or Daisy or Nick Carraway or Jay Gatsby himself, and the way that they viewed him or her, because there's multiple females in the book as well, and based off of what they saw their descriptions were in the novel and how they would do that. So like you put a suit on Jay Gatsby, Daisy um, always would wear dresses, and hopefully they would take that from the book and not from the movies because there's a lot that the movie left out, and hopefully my students will see that through the multiple lessons that we would do. And with that, um, yeah, so I would have them do that, and once that was done, ultimately this whole assignment should take about 3 or 4 class days. So yeah, and then they'd be able to take it home with them and work on it at home as well if they wanted to, so that they can finish the assignment. And after they have their person done, what I would like them to do is make a list of how they felt about the character and what they see the character as, and what could possibly be missing that F. Scott Fitzgerald, the greatest writer that ever lived, in my opinion, could have left out about the character, which I feel like, unfortunately, there are some things that I've put myself in the character's shoes and think about how would I react to that situation that they're in, and the emotions that go on. And so I would like my students to make a characterization list of things like that and explaining how they feel about the character again, and what else could have been for the character. Really, anything in their mind that reminds them of that character, I want them to write it down on the piece of paper, and that gives them a clear understanding. Really, I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna put myself in that character's shoes and imagine what my life would have been like. So I think that's a good way to visualize it. And then, as much as I don't like to write in novels and everything like that, there are some ways. If you can see here, I still have my annotations from my junior year, some of them, junior year of high school in the book. And so what I would also have my students do while we're reading this whole entire amazing novel throughout the many weeks that it would take, I would have them annotate throughout the whole entire book. This way they can really look back and get a reminder of like, okay, well, this is when Nick did such and such. This is when Gatsby felt this way. This is when Daisy was the vixen that she is. Sorry, my camera keeps falling down. So yeah, ultimately the language arts objective that I'm trying to teach them would be characterization, and to put themselves in their shoes. And annotating as well. Annotating is a great tool, and I really would like to use that all the time in my classes because I see the true benefit in it, and I would hope that my students would too. It's a great way to stay organized. It's a great way to study. It's a great way to do everything like that. And ultimately, well, after the annotating and they can look back at that, once they finish their characterization charts, what I would do for each and every one of the students is I would have them sign up on a sign-up sheet. And once I have that sign-up sheet complete, what the sign-up sheet does is it tells you who wants to present them first, ultimately. And I feel like that was a great tool that I used as a student, or that teachers used as a student. And so I would like to continue to do that as well. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we have the sign-up sheet, and then my students will go up to the front of the class and get over all public speaking fears they have, because high school students, they sometimes have those fears, and I would have them explain how they felt, show off their great amazing artwork that they have, and I would have them just express everything to the class. I felt this way about Jay Gatsby. I felt that way about Daisy. And it really opens up for discussion after it's all said and done. That's what I would like to do with it, is have a big Socratic type of discussion, questioning different things in the novel, questioning the characters and their motives and the way that they went about everything. And hopefully it all just works out for the students, and it turns out to be a great lesson. And yeah, hopefully this was my first attempt at doing a video like this. So hopefully everybody that's watching it gets a clear explanation of the lesson and the language arts objectives that I'd be trying to teach. And yeah, so thank you again.